A narrow alley in Stalingrad. A German soldier pulls the bolt of his carabiner 98K. The metallic screech echoes against stone. It is a mechanical masterpiece. Precise, lethal at 1,000 meters. But in this basement, 1,000 meters is a fairy tale. The enemy is 10 meters away. Why carry a weapon designed for the horizon when the killer is hiding behind the next door? The answer lay in the inertia of the generals. They clung to the 7.92 by 57 millimeter Mauser cartridge. A heavy, high-velocity round. It could stop a horse. It could punch through thick timber. But in the chaos of 1942, German infantry doctrine hit a wall of fire. The reality of the Eastern Front began grinding divisions into dust. Statistics stripped away the myth of the long-range marksman. Analysis of thousands of firefights revealed a cold truth. 90% of infantry duels were settled at 300 yards, 270 meters. In these moments, the bolt-action rifle became a beautiful, useless iron bar. Soldiers heard the roar of Soviet PPSH-41 submachine guns. High rate of fire, continuous spray. A German soldier pulled his bolt. One shot, 1 second of silence. Another shot. In that second, he was already dead. The attempt to fix it was the Gewehr 43, semi-automatic. Same heavy Mauser cartridge, but the fix was a failure of physics. The Mauser round was built for a war that no longer existed. It was overkill, pure, wasted energy. The rifle kicked like a mule. The weight was immense. The soldier carried 20 rounds of heavy lead when he needed 100 rounds of something lighter. Every shot wasted 90% of its propellant. The bullet carried enough energy to kill a target a mile away, but it was being fired into a wall 20 paces ahead. The German infantry was drowning in the sheer, redundant power of its own ammunition. While analysts debated engagement ranges, 14 million soldiers still cycled their bolts by hand. Cinema creates a myth of a fully automatic Wehrmacht. It shows every grenadier clutching an MP40. Reality was far more primitive. The bolt-action Kar 98K remained the backbone of the German army. 14 million units left the factories. Against this mountain of steel, the experimental weapons were mere pebbles. The paratroop FG-42 and the semi-automatic G-43 existed in the hundreds of thousands, not millions. Propaganda filmed the exceptions. The infantry lived the rule. The numbers reveal the gap. 14 million manual rifles against a handful of submachine guns. Firepower did not come from the riflemen. It came from the MG-34 and the MG-42. These belt-fed monsters compensated for the slow bolt-action rifles with sheer volume. But a machine gun is a crew-served anchor. You do not clear a house with a weapon that requires a tripod and 2 men to carry. It was an army of snipers supported by lead-spitting anvils, missing a hammer. The high command ignored the imbalance. They prioritized precision over pace, but the front line felt the friction. Berlin demanded a modernization of the arsenal at any cost. The solution to the fire rate problem had been gathering dust in archives since 1918. Combat data proved a brutal reality. Full-power rifle rounds were overkill for most engagements. Most firefights happened at distances under 300 yards. At this range, the Mauser was too slow. The MP40 was too weak. Why did the perfect close-quarters weapon exist on paper for decades, but not in steel? The answer was military conservatism. Hauptmann Petteritz saw the flaw during the Great War. In 1918, he argued that standard rifles wasted energy on distances no soldier could see. He proposed a compromise: a shorter cartridge, a faster weapon, a high-capacity magazine. The High Command chose to look away. They had just invested in the first submachine guns. They refused to fund a second revolution. This technical blindness cost the Wehrmacht thousands of lives in 1941. While the infantry struggled with manual bolts, the ghosts of Petteritz's report remained ignored. By 1938, the pressure became unbearable. The sweet spot between 50 and 300 yards was a tactical vacuum. Berlin finally gave in to the math of the ballistics experts. The Army Weapons Agency issued the first formal request for a mid-range weapon. Engineers solved the ballistic gap by butchering the standard infantry round. In 1938, they took the classic 57mm Mauser casing. They cut it down. 24mm of brass hit the floor. The result was the 7.92 by 33 Kurz. Kurz means short. By 1941, the German military officially adopted this truncated cartridge. It was the birth of the intermediate round. How lethal was it? At 700 meters per second, the bullet left the barrel slower than a rifle round, but faster than a pistol slug. The physics worked. It stayed lethal at 500 meters. It could punch through a steel helmet at 400 yards. Yet the recoil didn't dislocate the shooter's shoulder. Imagine the firing line. A standard Kar 98 rifle kicks like a mule. The flash blinds the soldier. The Kurz round changed the sensory profile. The muzzle flash shrank. The punch against the collarbone softened. Lower pressure meant control. For the first time, a soldier could fire a burst from the shoulder without the barrel climbing to the sky. It was the perfect foundation for a new class of weapon. They called the concept the Maschinenkarabiner, a machine carbine. To turn this theory into steel, the Army Weapons Agency issued competitive development contracts to two rival firms, Hänel and Walther. While the first prototypes were being forged, a warning arrived from Berlin. Hitler saw no need for a new cartridge. He preferred the proven power of the long-range Kar 98K. The Führer's skepticism acted as a structural brake. Development slowed to a crawl. Despite the pressure from the top, Hugo Schmeisser refused to abandon the concept. He was betting his entire reputation on a weapon the dictator didn't want. In 1942, two rival designs finally reached the testing grounds, the MKB-42W and the MKB-42H. The two rifles looked similar, but their internals told different stories. Schmeisser's Model H utilized a gas piston mounted directly above the barrel. When the weapon fired, propellant gases pushed the piston back to cycle a tilting bolt action. For sustained suppressive fire, Schmeisser chose an open bolt system to maximize barrel cooling. The Walther design took a different path, using a complex annular gas piston that wrapped around the barrel itself. Schmeisser's tilting bolt locked into the receiver, while Walther used a rotating bolt system. Adolf Hitler issued a direct order. One word: stop. He banned the development of any new rifles. Only the old Mauser carbines and the MP40 were to remain in production. The Führer believed the intermediate round was a mistake. To him, it was a sign of weakness on the battlefield. How do you manufacture thousands of forbidden rifles in a totalitarian state? You change the name to something the dictator already knows. The German Ordnance Department began a massive bureaucratic sabotage. In the quiet offices of the Armaments Ministry, officers took the files for the new weapon. They struck out the original designations. They wrote 2 letters and 2 numbers, MP43. The trick was simple. A machine pistol was a submachine gun. Hitler approved of those. By calling a revolutionary assault rifle a pistol, they turned a weapon of the future into a clerical error. It was a tank disguised as a tractor. 1943. The factory floor at Hänel stayed loud. Schmeisser's machines continued to stamp steel. Thousands of rifles rolled off the line under the false name. Hitler remained oblivious. The conspiracy held until a high-ranking general made a fatal mistake during a briefing. He spoke openly about the new rifle and its success on the front. The room went cold. The general realized too late that he had just confessed to treason. He looked directly at the Führer and revealed the secret of the MP43. The fake MP43 designation allowed the project to survive. Now, the sabotage weapons faced their ultimate judge, the mud and grit of the Eastern Front. 2 competing designs arrived in the trenches. The Hänel model, the MKB-42H, featured a dual firing system. For individual shots, it used a closed bolt to maintain accuracy. In full auto mode, it switched to an open bolt. The goal was cooling. The reality was a mechanical nightmare. The Walther prototype, the MKB-42W, used a radical annular gas piston wrapped around the barrel. It was a sleek, innovative design. But innovation is fragile in the dirt of Russia. How did the High Command plan to arm millions with such complex tools? They abandoned traditional manufacturing. Forget polished wood and precision-milled receivers. These rifles were born from heavy industrial presses. They were built from stamped steel. It was rough. It was ugly. It was fast. 30-round detachable box magazines were standard for both models. Wooden stocks provided the only link to the past. These weren't rifles. They were mass-produced tools of attrition. The combat trials began under fire. Select units on the Eastern Front received the first batches. Reports flowed back to the engineers. The feedback was brutal. The Walther system failed the test of the trenches. The Haenel design, the Model H, proved its superiority. What started as a technical experiment in a laboratory quickly became a desperate demand from the front lines. The mud of the Eastern Front acted as the ultimate judge. Reports from the trenches were brutal and unanimous. Soldiers faced a choice: the complex Walther system or the rugged Haenel Model H. The choice was easy. The Model H survived the dirt. It kept firing when the Model W jammed. Was the firepower enough? In 1943, the answer came back in blood. The troops threw away their bolt-action carbines. They chose the 30-round magazine and the ability to switch to full auto. It was the range of a rifle with the speed of a submachine gun. But the infantry demanded one more thing: reliability. The open bolt system let in dust and ruined accuracy. Engineers listened. They redesigned the weapon with a closed bolt. This single change kept the internal mechanism sealed from the Russian winter. The two competing projects ceased to exist. Designers merged them into a single hybrid. They took the stampings from one and the mechanics from the other. By mid-year, the first mass production units rolled off the lines. To hide the project from the High Command, they gave it a deceptive name. The crates were marked as Maschinenpistole 43. The deception finally collapsed in 1944. During a high-level briefing, frontline commanders ignored the official agenda. They demanded more of the new rifle currently in testing. Hitler was baffled. He had banned long-range automatic development years prior. The secret was out. Instead of ordering executions for the conspirators, the dictator demanded a demonstration. He stood on the testing grounds. The weapon felt heavy, 5 kilograms of stamped steel and wood. He gripped the stock. He pulled the trigger. The air tore apart. The StG-44 emitted a distinct, rhythmic metallic crack. This was not the erratic spray of a submachine gun. It was controlled power. Hitler watched the targets disintegrate. His skepticism evaporated. The battlefield reports were undeniable. The weapon worked. He decided to rebrand the miracle. The technical designation Maschinenpistole 43 was too clinical. It lacked the bite of German propaganda. Assault rifle. Sturmgewehr. The name was born from a dictator's ego, yet it became the technical standard for every infantry doctrine on the planet. By April 1944, the weapon received its final title, StG-44. The factory lines at Haenel and Steyr shifted into high gear. The Reich was bleeding out on two fronts. They needed a technological god from the machine to stop the Soviet tide. Berlin issued the decree for maximum output. Production orders increased to 30,000 units per month. Economy of war dictated the design. By 1944, the Reich could no longer afford precision craftsmanship. One Karabiner 98K required more man-hours than 4 new assault rifles. Factories under Allied fire needed speed. The StG-44 was the answer. It weighed 5 kilograms, heavy for a rifle, perfect for a machine. The weapon fired 500 to 600 rounds per minute. How to stay in the fight during a reload? The charging handle sat on the left side. The soldier kept his right hand on the pistol grip. His finger never left the trigger. The ergonomics were a blueprint for the future. A sturdy shoulder stock. A selector switch for semi or full auto. It was the ancestor of the AK-47. As the front collapsed, innovation became desperate. Engineers dropped grenade launchers and bayonet mounts to save time. Then came the Krummlauf, a curved barrel attachment. It bent the bullet's path 30 degrees. A soldier stayed behind the steel plate of a Tiger tank. He fired through a hatch. The bullets curved around the armor. In street fighting, peering around a corner meant a sniper's bullet to the head. The Krummlauf allowed a soldier to spray the intersection while remaining invisible. The barrel survived only 300 rounds before the stress of the curve destroyed the rifling. It was a weapon of a losing side. 30 rounds in the magazine.